everyone, and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Sean and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I'm Tennille.
I'm Sean, and here we are in a brand new year of 1977.
What a year. We've looked ahead on our list of what movies we have this year, and it's gonna be a doozy of a year.
Some big iconic ones on here.
Oh yeah, starting with this one.
Starting with Wizards from Ralph Bakshi here in the United States.
Yep.
I just want to say...
Yeah.
Bakshi's improving.
He has been.
Yeah.
I mean, every single one of his films gets better in some ways. However, there is certainly a bit of a regression here in terms of animation.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll get into that.
The animation is worse, but you know what's good about this one? It's almost a completely new subject.
It's like 50% a new subject.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Like...
It's got
25%.
It's got a new veneer. It makes it look like it's something completely new.
Yeah, until you get into all the Nazi symbolism. Well, not even so. Straight up propaganda and...
Anyways, let's go over a plot synopsis because I feel like this one kind of needs it.
This film is a cult classic, but there's still a lot of people who haven't seen it, myself included. This was the first time I had seen it. I'd heard of it.
Yeah.
I'd seen bits and pieces of it before, but...
All right.
Go ahead.
There's a giant lore dump at the beginning of this movie that I'm not going to divulge. Just know it's a post-apocalyptic world where fairies and fantasy creatures have come back to take over the universe.
The most important thing you need to know is that humanity explodinated itself in nuclear war.
Yeah, nuclear war
thousands of years ago.
Destroyed themselves, so now elves and fairies and stuff are controlling it. Also mutants because radiation. And then there were two brothers born. They're both wizards, the title. One is the good guy named Avatar, and he does nice things. And then there's the other one that's evil and bad, and he's like Dark Wolf or something.
Dark Wolf,
Wow,
yeah.
I can't believe I nailed that. Anyways, so he's evil, so he lives in the evil radiation lands and like rules the mutants. And he decides, you know what? Technology's cool and stuff, even though that's what exploded us all those years ago. I'm going to use it.
I hope you're showing off these illustrations here at the beginning, because, okay, this first minute of this movie, I'm like, you know what? This is looking, I'm kind of getting my hopes up. This looks pretty cool. Like, I like basic fantasy shit. Give it to me. And then...
The movie actually starts and we get into Ralph Bakshi's pretty generic animation cartoon characters.
Oh, and these character designs, too, are done such a disservice by the animation. Because, like, the illustration work really makes them look better than they are.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Black Wolf has this sick design where, like, his arms are just skeletons. Like skeleton arms, and then he's got like fleshy hands, and like that's sick. And then you see it animated, and you're like, oh no,
that's pretty.
No, that looks so bad.
Yeah. Anyways, it's good versus evil. The evil brother sends an assassin robot to go kill Avatar, the good guy. It doesn't work. So Avatar reprograms the robot or something. And then he and his scantily clad fairy apprentice girlfriend, Eleanor, and chief of the local elf tribe, Weehawk, set out on a quest to go back to the bad guy and kill him. They
also rename the robot, I think.
Peace. Yeah.
Yeah.
The robot is also, like, one of the only characters...
And I don't know that he's a robot.
They mention he's a robot.
Okay.
Once.
Okay.
near the end of the movie.
The way the movie gives you information is a little...
Stilted and then nonsensical.
Yeah.
Either way, it's an adventure film where they adventure across the land, your basic D&D stuff. They run into little fairies that give them trouble, then they're on an ice cube, and then they're in the desert, and then they do the thing, and then there's
They go through spooky caves.
They go through spooky caves, and then there's, like, Eleanor backstabs and kills the robot and then runs away with the bad guys. But
Which makes no sense.
It was all just contrived bullshit because she touched the robot that was in inner conflict with himself, so it made her evil briefly, so she killed the robot. That's a really dumb storyline.
I hate it.
Anyways.
And it's just there to make our main character, Avatar, go through like
doubting section.
Yeah, he's going crazy with grief and...
No, this doesn't feel right. And so in the end, he just kills his brother with gun. Even though, like, the good guys are all about not using technology.
The main conflict of this film is your good guys use magic and nature and whatever, and then the bad guys use old World War II Nazi technology death machines.
Yeah, they're literally just making tanks, and they're Nazis, and...
We specifically bring up World War II and Nazis because the film is
explicit about that part.
Explicit about that, right. That's not just us
there are swastikas all over the place. They show literal Nazi propaganda in the film, and I'm not showing you any of this.
No, like, it's just literal Nazi propaganda in the movie. And, like, it's being shown by the bad guys, but it's still just like, why? This is so on the... Like, you could have done this
it's so incredibly...
without linking it to Nazis.
Exactly. That's the point I wanted to bring up. It's like, you don't need to actually bring literal Nazis into this. People will get it without you putting literal Nazis in it because they're evil and they're using technology. You don't need the Nazi parts.
Like, you're already pushing it with the whole... technology is bad allegory. You don't need to put literal Nazis in here. Like, come on, Bakshi. I know that, like, this is your thing, but can you not for just 5 minutes?
So, good guys win. The bad guys' castle collapses. The evil forces return to hell or scatter because the leader is dead and the projector is destroyed.
Oh, yeah, one of the things that...
It's literally just a projector.
Yeah, Black Wolf's, like, main thing that he's able to, like, raise this army is because he's able to find a projector which has the Nazi propaganda on it.
Yep.
It just... Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So the good guys win...
Oh, by the way, I feel like this is the first time for a Ralph Bakshi film that we haven't had to be like, by the way, kiddies, you should leave.
It's technically okay.
Yeah, it's certainly not super appropriate. It's still hella sort of problematic TM.
And lots of violence and stuff, but, like, there's not a whole lot of... There's no actual nudity, but I mean, like, Eleanor's...
She's fantasy nude, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, it's like she has scantily clad white strips of cloth over the appropriate locations and then nothing else.
Yeah.
So, fine.
Yeah.
This felt incredibly 70s.
This is, I think,
this feels like most peak 70s thing.
Yeah, this is like the most 70s thing we've watched so far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got your fantasy, but it's also like urban sci-fi, like tech, and
it's original D&D mixed with like future sci-fi garbage that is like, these are peak 70s and they're clashing and mixing in a weird way. It's 70s through and through.
Mm-hmm. And I don't hate it.
No, I don't think this movie is bad, honestly.
I don't think it's good.
No. It runs into a lot of problems that are like bad storytelling and beats that come out of nowhere. But you know what? Honestly, the basic structure of what they're trying to do here works. It just needs some revisions.
Well, and even its sloppier moments kind of have... I can't believe I'm saying this about a Bakshi movie. They kind of have their own charm to it. Like, it's kind of campy, and I kind of like it for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is certainly the most appealing Bakshi film we've watched so far.
Yeah. The art direction...
I still have huge problems with it, though.
There's still glaring problems, but...
Yeah.
The art direction is one thing I want to nitpick, is the elves and the fairies generally feel like they belong in the same universe. But the bad guys and freaking Avatar are round, bubbly cartoon characters that bounce around the screen in a cartoon fashion while the elves are running around in like a fairly realistic sense. Like
Rotoscoped sense.
Well, okay, yeah,
We'll get to the rotoscoping in a bit.
But I mean, like, the elves themselves feel like they could fit in like a down-to-earth animated film compared to the horses are just balls with legs and they bounce everywhere, essentially.
And they give them horse noises, like when they're running. It's a galloping of a horse.
You know, with 4 feet. And these things have 2.
Please, why? Why?
These are like disparate things that don't go together very well, except it's Bakshi, so of course it's there. Oh, another Bakshi-ism that doesn't leave is the random segues that are cutaways with characters that don't matter, and in this case are always the Nazis, being dumb and having throwaway gags that do literally nothing to add to the plot or make us sympathize with the bad guys or anything. They just exist and then they're done and nothing happens with it.
Yeah.
And they happen at least 3 to 4 times throughout the film.
It's usually just there to make you feel like uncomfortable about something, and then it goes away, and you don't have to think about it again. Okay, but going back to your comment on the art direction, I totally agree. However, I will say that looking into it, it is somewhat intentional.
Okay.
So, the people of the Scorch, which is where the bad guys live with Black Wolf and whatever.
The mutated
mutants.
peoples.
The backgrounds and such there are all based, like, the background artist they have working on those scenes for that area is Ian Miller. Great background work. It's really gorgeous here, too. Like, there's some fantastic artwork here. Almost none of it is the animation, though, which is sad. And then on the other side, your more fairy tale side, I forget what the land is called, where it's the good guys. The background art, and I think the illustrations are also done by Mike Plog. I think that's how you say his last name. Another really great illustrator working on this film. I highly recommend looking up both of these artists' work. They're
incredibly 70s.
Incredibly 70s, like, holy shit, but in very different ways. You know, like, this artwork here that these two guys are doing are carrying this film a lot. The characters that go on top of these backgrounds do not really mesh. Again, I think you're correct in saying, like, the elves and the fairies and sprites and such, they look like they fit on top of here. But the mutants are not designed with Ian Miller's backgrounds in mind.
No, because these are, like, heavily shaded, like, it's just like stripes of detail everywhere. And then you got these overly cartoony monster things bouncing and flopping around, or the things in gas masks, and like they're also egregiously cartoony. Or you have literal rotoscoped film of like people on horses and armor running around and stuff.
Yeah.
Like neither of these fit on top of this particular art style background, and it's a weird mishmash.
Mm-hmm. I also want to say though that some of this illustration work might also be Bakshi, but I don't know for sure. Because when I was researching the film, I saw that that it says that Ralph Bakshi has a long interest in fantasy and has been drawing fantasy artwork as far back as 1955 while he was still in high school. And Wizards originated as like a concept from that. So like...
I could see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how much... Because a lot of this feels like concept art. Mm-hmm. Which isn't great, but like, it's the best parts of the movie. So, I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. Let's talk a little bit about the rotoscoping in this film.
Okay.
So, sometimes there's just parts of this film where large sections of, like, battle scenes and such are just obvious footage being, like, they just went over the movie with one color and rotoscoped it. And
it's a piece of, it's an actual, like, they didn't even have to try that hard. It's literally just something they could have done with an easy filter effect that I know exists at this point. So it's like,
they didn't even have to rotoscope it.
No,
like,
it's just they take the footage and then they
overexpose it.
Like, yeah, overexpose it, and like there's only 2 colors ever, black, one other color, and then sometimes they go in and they paint wings on a particular character so they look like a devil or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just...
A lot of times, though, there's a lot of flaws in that system, too, because, you know, like, parts where, you know, it should be a body... It's got parts missing because there was obviously something reflecting off of the person's clothes or something like that.
Which I think they would argue adds to the aesthetic of weird, mysterious, and yada yada yada.
You know, it's pretty obvious what's going on here, guys.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. Like, I think... due to the movie's budget,
yeah,
and
it's like,
the fact
honestly,
that they were running out of time and they needed to like make these shots work, and like
it's like, this is a cheap way to do crowd shots. Yes, I don't blame them for it.
It doesn't look great though,
especially when the rest of the bad guys are literally cartoons.
Yeah. Yeah. So this film was being produced at the same time as Star Wars.
Yep.
And by the same studio.
LucasArts?
I mean...
Or whoever...
Distributed by...
Okay.
So, I think it's Fox, like, helped with the budget for both
Fox
of these.
Or whatever.
Yeah, so... Bakshi was unable to complete the battle sequences with the budget Fox had given him. When asked for a budget increase, they refused. During the same meeting, director George Lucas had asked for a budget increase for Star Wars and was also refused. As a result, Bakshi finished his film by paying out of his own pocket and using rotoscoping for the unfinished battle sequences. And I specifically want to bring up Star Wars because... little baby Mark Hamill's in this movie.
For like 2 lines. He plays a random small sprite character who gets shot in the chest and dies.
Yep.
But he says a couple lines.
And... okay. And here's where I start just having a fit. Because reading through some of the production history on this film, I was just like, what? Why? Why? Why is this like this? Alright. So, originally the movie was going to be named War Wizards.
Oh, but they changed it because...
One second.
Oh,
Don't
dear.
cut me off. As War Wizards neared completion, Lucas requested that Bakshi change the title of his film to Wizards in order to avoid conflict with Star Wars. And Bakshi agreed because Lucas had allowed Mark Hamill to take time off from Star Wars in order to record a voice for Wizards.
2 lines.
He recorded like 2 lines!
2 lines. I'll change the name of my entire movie so they don't get confused. Because you let me borrow your star.
And let me borrow Mark Hamill. I mean, apparently George Lucas and Ralph Bakshi were both like, that Mark Hamill kid, he's going places, so...
I was gonna go into town to get some power converters. I mean, Mark Hamill has grown
Hamill's great.
so much.
Yeah.
Like, there at his beginning, he was a little silly, but hey, you gotta start somewhere.
I think it's funny. And then, okay.
I wonder if you asked Mark Hamill today if he remembered recording those lines for Wizards.
I bet he does. I mean, this movie's a cult classic, so...
It's true. It's not like a forgotten film that no one remembers or anything. It's like, no, people actually still enjoy this movie.
Yeah, and his voice acting career, is arguably left a larger impact than his movie actor career.
Or 5 Star Wars films that he's acted in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of the Star Wars, this is a tangent, but like a lot of the Star Wars actors and actresses didn't really do anything after... Or, like, aren't really known for anything after Star Wars.
Because Star Wars just kind of took over their career.
And then they're like, well, I can just make bank off of only doing this. I don't have to do other things. But Mark Hamill went on to do so much voice acting and stuff. Like, people know him for...
Legend!
Like, what?
I'm saying he's a legend.
Yes, he's a legend. It's like, he went on to do, like, amazing... Joker work in some of the Batman animated stuff, and he also...
Firelord Ozai.
Firelord Ozai. And then, of course, for us, he was in the Kingdom Hearts series as Master Ericus, which was like one game. But, like, he still went on to do stuff. And then, of course, Harrison Ford did continue to go on and act in a million other movies. And, like, Indiana Jones and...
of course.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Star Wars, though. That's a different podcast. I'm sure there's like 50 billion of them on YouTube that you can find.
I don't even know where I was going with that.
Just actors?
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so the rotoscoping. In addition to stock footage, the film used battle sequences from films such as Zulu, El Cid, Battle of the Bulge, and Alexander Nevsky for rotoscoping. Live action sequences from Peton were also featured. So I can only assume these were all... I can only hope that these were all Fox films. That Bakshi was given permission. I don't know, but I'm just like, Now I wonder, if anyone knows, like, did Bakshi actually, like, get approval to do this, or did he just do it and no one caught it until later? I'm deathly curious, because I could easily see it either way.
I've edited the footage enough, it's not the same anymore.
Look, I'll be honest, Bakshi seems like he is barely comprehending, like, 75% of what goes on around him. So... I don't know. I just don't know. Alright. I have more things from my research that I just need to read. And yes, a lot of this comes from Wikipedia because I just... Okay. So, Bakshi intended to prove that he could produce a family picture that had the same impact as his adult-oriented films.
I mean, you're closer to a family picture with this than any of your previous films, but I still wouldn't call this a family picture. I would call this a teens and above film.
The film is an allegorical comment on the moral ambiguity of technology and the potentially destructive powers of propaganda. No shit.
Really?
What? You're blowing my mind here. Black Wolf's secret weapon is propaganda, used to incite his legions and terrorize the fairy folk of Montagar. There we go, that's where they're from. But Avatar's willingness to use a technological tool, a handgun pulled up from his sleeve, destroys his evil twin. Bakshi also states that Wizards was about the creation of the state of Israel and the Holocaust, about the Jews looking for a homeland, and about the fact that fascism was on the rise again. That's some real galaxy brain think there, Bakshi. I don't know about all that, but okay, sure.
He certainly threw some Jewish symbolism in there.
Yeah. For reasons, even though this is supposed to take, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna get into it.
It's like, sure, it might be. I don't know enough about that conflict to say yes or no.
Yeah.
And if you say it, it probably means that for you.
This part. Okay, hold on. According to Bakshi, he was once interviewed by a German reporter who was unsure as to why the Nazi swastika was used to represent war. Bakshi said, "I didn't get any criticism. People pretty much loved wizards." Review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes gives the film an approval rating of 63%. Just those 3 sentences all next to each other, I think is the funniest thing and pretty much sums up Ralph Bakshi films.
Why'd you have to go with Nazis? I didn't get criticized for it. This movie only got a 63%.
Alright, okay. Are you ready for the big bombshell now?
Okay.
So, in 2004, people signed a petition and they're like, 20th Century Fox, we want a DVD of Wizards. So Fox released it, and it has an audio commentary by Ralph Bakshi.
Oh. Made in 2004?
Yes.
Okay.
Featured an audio commentary track by Bakshi, and the interview segment, Ralph Bakshi, the Wizard of Animation. Bakshi stated that he always intended Wizards to be a trilogy.
Uh-huh.
Bakshi mentioned he had plans for a sequel entitled Wizards 2 that involved the relationship between Avatar and Eleanor. Bakshi said the plot would be where their relationship doesn't work out and Weehawk gets in the way. The sequel was never developed due to production difficulties and other projects on which Bakshi was then focused.
I wanted to make a love triangle sequel.
As of 2015, Bakshi has stated that he has a script finished and hopes to have it be his next film. In a November interview while promoting Last Days of Coney Island, Bakshi stated that Wizards 2 is about madness. Absolute madness. Which, again, just feels like the most Bakshi response.
Sorry, when was that from?
2015!
He's still working on it.
Apparently. Apparently. One thing to note going forward is that I know one of the next, this might actually be the next Bakshi film we watch, but I know that going forward with Bakshi films, the reliance on rotoscoping becomes a problem. Like, something that really kind of takes that unique quality that a lot of people who liked Bakshi's work start to criticize him about, is that there's just too much rotoscoping. And Bakshi kind of becomes obsessed with this idea of realism, which seems to be an ongoing trend in animation where, you just always have people who are like, oh, but what if it was more realistic? And then we all kind of have like this realization of like, oh, wait, but then why are we, if we're trying to make things this realistic, why don't we just use a fucking camera? So, this was better than most Ralph Bakshi films, but that's not saying much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I waffled a lot on this review, but this was a weird movie. I kind of would recommend this one.
Yeah. Probably. Of all the Ralph Bakshi films, I think this is the one I would recommend over any of the others.
With that being said, though, it kind of depends on, alright, if you're wanting the best of Ralph Bakshi, this would probably be the one that Sean and I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just going for, historical significance, though, it still has to be Fritz the Cat.
Mm-hmm.
So, all the others are totally skippable.
Yeah, please don't watch any other Ralph Bakshi films. They're bad.
Yeah. Alright.
Well, I think that's probably going to be it for this review.
Uh-huh. Next time, we have something completely different.
Deep in the 100-acre woods,
where Christopher Robin plays.
The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is coming up next. Back to Disney. It's been a while.
Ah.